There's a lot of work to do to convince sister parties on the continent to understand why President Cyril Ramaphosa opted for a government of national unity. What are the main sticking points?
Well, the issue here is that you know that ANC is the oldest liberation organization on the continent. And in fact, even globally, when you look at political parties, ANC is a very, very formidable, well-known party. Many years, the party has been there since 1912, and it has got relations, particularly with socialist organizations or parties in other regions on the continent, with all those parties, the former liberation organizations. And also, you know that most of the political parties on the continent and the struggle was modeled or was adopted by many countries following the launch of the African National Congress after 1912. And therefore, there's so much belief and understanding that the ANC, and particularly South Africa in this case, must always provide leadership on specific African issues, particularly when you look at a fight to ensure that there's total liberation economically as well on the continent. And therefore, you have a situation where now Africa is saying, but hang on, will this still be possible for the ANC to lead us or to make meaningful input in terms of where to from here as a continent for total liberation or emancipation? Because the issue of the economy is still a thorny one, the land question, the minerals of the continent. Now, even people were asking us as international desk of the SABC behind the scenes that how are we going to negotiate the issue of food security on the continent with an opposition party such as the DA? Because when you talk about negotiations, trade negotiations at the WTO, when you look at agricultural subsidies, you know that the West, they do have a particular position, and the South has a particular position. And therefore, how are we going to trust that the negotiations will come out in favor of the West and particularly the African continent or Sub-Sahara? And therefore, you have those issues. And then the issue of the foreign policy, when you look at peace and security,
which the ANC has emphasized that insofar as policy is concerned, there will be continuity. But could there be contentious issues here? How will the president navigate that?
Well, as I pointed out, when you look at the issues of the war in Ukraine, there's a concern because you know that the DA had a particular position. The Middle East, the same thing. Now, the president will have to ensure that he is able to find synergy in cabinet on those issues. And the ANC used the statement of intent to ensure that they are able to lock in the principle around the foreign policy.
Greetings, everyone. Once again, we are here. So what we're going to comment on today is a very interesting topic. The various African countries came out to try to understand this issue of the ANC, allying with the Democratic Alliance as a revolutionary organization. Of course, these parties which have queried and have asked South Africa where it is going, or asked specifically ANC, are majorly African organizations. They are the ones. So as we are speaking here, many Africans are asking, and of course we have done an extensive analysis on the ANC and its allying with the Democratic Alliance. And we have concluded in our analysis here that the ANC should have instead allied with the MK party or the EFF. For the MK party, simply because that's where the votes of the ANC went. So this is what we are seeing now, that the African heads of state are asking, where is this going? And of course, it is because people understand, as Sophie Mukwena here has mentioned, that the DA, its position is very difficult. It is a fascist, it is a white party, right? This is a right-wing party. All right. So these are the things which the various African heads of state are trying to understand, and the various liberation organizations across the African continent are trying to understand. If you look at for issues of Israel, for example, the question of Palestine, the DA is in support of Israel. All right. And this is a colonial organization, just to put it, that people are not understanding. How could the ANC, ally with such an organization when it comes to the African continent? This is a party also which does not believe in South Africa taking back its land. It's going to drag feet around there and try to confuse the country so that they will delay in taking back the question of land. So these questions did not delay among us alone, among us, the Africans alone. But these questions were, risen, or they arose even within the diplomatic Africans themselves. And this is what we are seeing. And of course, we have seen the comments by certain young people, especially in South Africa, who have said that South Africa has nothing to answer to its fellow Africans. It does. It actually does. It has a lot to answer to the fellow Africans. And of course, when I look at this, I can only blame the ANC itself, the African National Congress, because the African National Congress has not been tough or it has not been firm in teaching the next generation of young people what the South African history is. And of course, we are talking about the contribution which the various African countries, made. But more so also the fact that South Africa still has to take back the land and give it to the African people in South Africa or Azania. It has to take back the land. So this, even though the Africans in the other countries are looking at it as if it doesn't matter, it matters to them. It matters to them. And also the DA coming to power in South Africa, it matters. It matters to other countries. For example, if the DA took power in South Africa, you knew you knew very well that Tony Blair tried to overthrow the government in Zimbabwe. You know that the DA, if it comes to power, it will lead to the overthrow of the government in Zimbabwe, right? And incursion into Democratic Republic of Congo by imperialism. It will be open field for imperialism if the Democratic Alliance takes power. So the African governments have a legitimate concern. It has a legitimate concern. So I think that the young people who are saying that South Africa has nothing to answer, they are really mistaken. A lot of South Africans are really mistaken and short-sighted. I would say that they are short-sighted. Let me say something here, especially when it comes to land. South Africa, I've said this numerous times, and on different, platforms, and even here on our very platform, that if South Africa is going to take back the land from these whites, South Africa needs Africa. South Africa really needs Africa. It needs to mobilize the whole African continent. And this is where I faulted actually the ANC, that it has been playing around with this issue of land instead of taking it on, hands-on, and saying, we need to take back the land. And now to take back that land, you need to mobilize the African continent. You really, as South Africa, need the African continent. Because if you don't do it, it's going to be painful, extremely painful. We have seen what happened to Zimbabwe. We have seen this, all right? So unless South Africa wants to turn itself in a completely white country, which does not want to take back the land which belongs to the black people in South Africa. But if it wants that, then it has to radicalize. ANC was supposed to radicalize in itself. And these are the questions that we are seeing that are rising, among the Africans. And they are asking, where is South Africa going now? How can we be sure? Like what Sophie said, they are asking that how can we be sure about what is happening here? You are allying with colonialism. You are allying with colonialism. They are not saying it, but they are telling you that you are allying with the enemies of the African continent. This is what the African heads of state are saying, and the other liberation movements across the African continent. So it is a huge mistake, like we say, for South Africa to take, for the ANC especially, to take this position and go in this direction. So the African countries have a solid, legitimate concern when it comes to this particular relationship, and of course has to do with foreign policy. The continent is foreign policy when it comes to do, even to the security of the African continent. We cannot allow imperialism to come back in South Africa and take over the country, right? And we are seeing that it is happening slowly, and that is why the concerns are coming in. So when it comes to the foreign policy, South Africa is the one which has been leading African foreign policy almost, right? When it comes to contending with the United States, especially when it comes to the issue of Ukraine. And even there's a bill which passed in the Congress in the United States, a bill called HR 7311. All the other African countries never commented about this bill, because this bill infringes on Africa's right to choose its partners across the world. And it is only South Africa which stood up to oppose this particular bill. So South Africa has a huge role to play on the African continent, but at the same time, it also needs the African continent. We need each other as Africa. We need each other. And this goes on to show you actually why our continent has failed to develop. That is from another angle, because the young people, especially of this generation, they do not understand that our ancestors like Robert Sobukwe and Kwame Nkrumah, NASA, all these people, they saw that Africa can only thrive unified. And yet these people, these young people in South Africa, they think that they can succeed. South Africa can succeed, for example, without the rest of the African continent, which is not true. South Africa cannot thrive, it cannot succeed without the rest of the African continent. So this is the concern. This is the concern that we are seeing. If we want to go somewhere, if we want to develop this continent rapidly, we need to work together. We need each other. There's no such thing that like we don't need each other. Like South Africa does not need to answer. Actually, this is what has kept our continent behind. This is what has kept our continent, behind the rest of the world. China, India is progressing. The United States is gone. Europe is gone. We are still behind because we do not want to be answerable to each other. We want to have Paul Biya in Cameroon doing whatever he wants with the French. Mind you, with the French, not alone, with the French, and misbehaving over there. And this has an effect on what happens in other African countries. We are seeing President Ruto, doing U-turns and misbehaving and aligning with imperialism. We are seeing people like Nanado. All these people need to be checked. And they can only be checked for us to work together, to develop together, and advance rapidly together as Africans if we adhere to the principles which our ancestors, like Robert Sobukwe and Kwame Nkrumah and all the others, which laid, and they foresaw that the only development which can benefit the African continent, if we want development to come to the African continent and develop the continent rapidly, we have to work together. We have to be answerable to each other. All this continent in which we exist belongs to all of us as Africans. So there's no such thing like this African should not be answerable to the other and this one does not answer. South Africa has a case to answer with the rest of the African continent. But what do you think? What do you think? You may be South African and you still think otherwise you may be African. What do you think? Put that in the comment section. Put your suggestions in the comment section. What do you think about this, that African diplomats have started asking for answers from South Africa? We need to work together. We need to work together. We are in this together. We are in this, underdevelopment together currently, whereby our continent is not developing. And if we are going to rise, we need to work together. But what do you think? What do you think on your side? Please put that in the comment section and like the video, currently like the video, and share it with others. My name is Kwame Gonza, and the platform is called Connect Africa. Please like the video and share it with each other. And also, please like the video as we are going forward. Don't forget to be part of the platform always and always. Please put the comments, where they are supposed to be in the comment section. Your suggestions in the comment section, and we will pick it up from there. My name is Kwame Gonza once again, and the platform is called Connect Africa. Let me talk to you later. Peace to all of you.